Hogwarts sighed, and it echoed with his empty halls. The students had all left for the summer, and he felt empty and useless. Hagrid was often around, but he was usually too focused on bizarre animals to fulfill the needs of Hogwarts. Professors would pop in occasionally, but being a magic school, Hogwarts didn't need much upkeeping. The little he did need was taken care of by Filch. He shuddered, causing small trembles throughout his halls that was barely discernible except by the spiders and owls. He didn't care much for Filch, wishing he could walk without his squib feet touching his magnificent stone floors. He had long since stopped trying to force his floors open to swallow Filch and Mrs. Norris whole. Besides, if he kept it up, he would be risking a prolapsed staircase, and it was no laughing matter. The giant squid saw how miserable Hogwarts was. It was true that he also missed the students, but for an entirely different reason. He missed their terrified screams as he revealed himself, rising from the murky depths of the lake. His huge eyes stared mournfully at his very large tentacles. At one time, he had dreams of being an actor. The larger he grew, the fewer agents and scouts would come calling, until they finally stopped altogether. There wasn't much in the market for a squid that would split a schoolgirl from stem to stern. He stared at his tentacles as they moved gently in the current. Schoolgirls were out. A plan formed in his mind, and he swam to the surface, hesitating momentarily before pulling himself from the water. It ran off his rubbery skin in rivulets as he made his way across the grounds. No humans were around to witness the incredible trick, and no human would believe his eyes had he been a witness. Hogwarts watched the giant squid approach and felt apprehension well up in his kitchen. "What are you doing?" The words weren't spoken, but they were understood. "Just trust me," the giant squid replied, caressing Hogwarts' outer walls. "I'm not ready!" Hogwarts exclaimed, trying to push the giant squid away with his magic. "Hogwarts, you're lonely. I'm lonely. We don't have to be. Besides, you can't go around manipulating your staircases. You know about that? Everyone does. Sort of. That's besides the point. I've never..." The temperature within rose in embarrassment. "I'll go slowly, I promise." He began to caress a window, teasing it open. Hogwarts sighed, the fight leaving him. He relaxed, allowing the tentacles inside, where it brushed up against the inner walls before setting on the stone floor. He fastened the suction cups to the floor, lifting the tentacle away so that it pulled on the floor without losing its grip. Another sigh swept through the halls of Hogwarts. "Oh, Merlin, that feels so good!" His rapture turned to fright as he felt the tentacle work its way into a second window. "I don't..." "Trust me, it feels good. Remember this." He pulled the suction cups a little harder, and Hogwarts groaned. "Do that again," the giant squid complied, and as he did so, thrust his second tentacle in. Hogwarts shuddered, coming very close to ending the fun. The giant squid backed off, unwilling to finish so soon. He waited for Hogwarts to calm down before sending the second tentacle to search the room. He felt the need to fill Hogwarts as much as possible, and he raised another tentacle, caressing his outer walls, running along the windowsills and tracing individual bricks. So caught up in the bliss, Hogwarts didn't notice the giant squid slip in a third and fourth tentacle. "This is incredible," Hogwarts breathed. "This isn't even the best part." He held up his two longest tentacles. These can reach further than a room. They can go into your hallways. I want them in me. Are you sure? They're quite large. Apprehension rolled through his kitchens again. While he was deciding, the giant squid forced another tentacle in. You have 3 tentacles left to decide. What happens if I don't? In response, the giant squid slid a 6th into another window. Do, he said simply, with a hint of warning. Hogwarts could take them all. He knew he could. But what would the other wizards' schools think? Would Bo Baxton's allow a giant squid to violate her? Certainly not. If Durmstrang even found out, there would be no end of teasing. The giant squid grew impatiently and slid a 7th tentacle into a window, followed immediately by an 8th. 2, 1, time's up, and you didn't decide. What? But that's not fair. It's a simple answer, yes or no. I'll have to punish you. And with that, he struck Hogwarts square on the outer wall with a paddle-like tentacle. Hogwarts yelped and tried to squirm away, but the tentacles and his foundations held firm. The giant squid struck him with the other. Again and again, he spanked the naughty wizarding school until he sobbed for the giant squid to stop. And still he spanked. The giant squid finally stopped, but Hogwarts didn't have time for reprieve before the giant squid forced his extra-long, spanking tentacles into 2 separate windows. They slid through the room and forced the doors open, the pain only adding to Hogwarts' pleasure. The tentacles were in the halls now, massaging the long stone tunnels. This was incredible, the giant squid thought. He really should have done this ages ago. Every tentacle was in a different window. No schoolgirl, no matter how many movies she has made, could hold all 10 tentacles at once. Each one moved differently, with a different pace, driving Hogwarts crazy with the inability to match his speed. He felt that familiar feeling and doubled his efforts. Ink exploded all over Hogwarts, some finding its way into the windows. He unified his tentacles somewhat, completely focused on Hogwarts. He must be close. Then it happened. Water shot out of faucets, toilets overflowed, and bread set in ovens to keep warm by thoughtful house elves exploded. Hogwarts shook violently to his foundations, rousing Filch from his bed, sending house elves and Mrs. Norris scrambling for cover. Even Hagrid heard the groan of stone and came running. They searched around the castle and through the castle, but found no signs of intruders. Most perplexing was the sticky ink on all sides of the castle. Hagrid peered through the dark toward the castle, but was unable to see the ripples left in the wake of the giant squid. The giant squid slipped beneath the waves, wanting to grin even though his beak was incapable. His anticipated and very short summer before the professor and students returned, so he had better make the most of it.